Hello, everyone. This is Cole from the CX Matters podcast from the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy, joined by our really special guest this evening, Grant. Grant, why don't you introduce yourself and your role?
Hey, yeah. So Grant Randall, a national director of patient experience for Compass One Healthcare. And yeah, I don't know how long you want the introduction to be. Compass One Healthcare is support services, clinical support. It's everything from linen to a lot of food, housekeeping, patient transport, a lot of the things you usually don't think of that affect patient experience. Our parent company is Compass Group. It's a UK company that's I think last I checked, it was the sixth largest employer in the world, or like between the Chinese post office and Amazon. We say we're the largest company you've never heard of because we kind of stay behind the scenes, helping elevate the patient experience and slink back into the shadows.
Welcome to the CX Matters podcast, a production of the American Journal of Healthcare Strategy, with your host, Cole Lyons.
That is great. That's a great place to be, right? And I mean, and that's kind of why we reached out, is because it's an interesting organization, and then you have an interesting resume as well. Looking, kind of
Yeah,
the University of Kansas. You have a bachelor's in English.
big Jayhawk fan, big basketball
Oh,
guy.
yeah. That's a big in that area too, in general, right?
Sir, it's big in the. Oh my gosh, yeah, no, it's all we have.
I know my parents are in North Carolina by UNC, and so we've been to the UNC versus Duke games, been to the
Oh
NC
yeah,
State game. It's a big deal.
it's a big deal. Yeah, you took our coach in the late
Yeah,
'90s. It's okay. Bill Self came in. We got a championship. We'll get another one this year, so we're okay.
I'd say it's looking promising this year for you.
We have an NBA team at the college level.
Nice.
We are out of control.
That is awesome. I have not been keeping up on that. I'm going to have to now after this episode. I'm going to have to look this up
Yeah,
and take a look.
I have no superstition or worry about just throwing it out there. Like no, I'm all in. Trash talking, ready to go.
And do you still live in? You're in Ohio now, right?
Yeah, in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, that's the part that's not on my resume. I've lived all over. Currently in Columbus, Ohio, with the wife and the dogs and the yeah.
Oh, nice, very nice.
I've settled. I live in airports technically, but I've kind of settled.
Well, why Ohio exactly? How did you settle in Ohio?
So, well, again, when you do the structure down from Compass Group, Compass One Healthcare, which healthcare is the sector I work in, obviously, and that splits out into the various divisions. Again, like Morrison Healthcare is our food service, which a lot of people have heard of. Crothall Healthcare is EVS, patient transport. So I was working for the Crothall sector at Ohio State University. So I had an opportunity to work for Ohio State. I did that from 2014 to 2019, brought me to Columbus. Never thought I would live in Ohio, thought I would be gone the second that job was over.
Right.
Fell in love with it. Absolutely love Columbus. Greatest place I've ever lived.
What do you like about Columbus? Because a lot of people, Ohio can be kind of a meme nowadays, right?
Oh yeah, no, and we are well aware, and we participate in the meme in Columbus. Like Columbus is its own thing. Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toledo, everything else it's meme worthy. To be honest, I said that on a nationally podcast that's going out there. This is
Really?
terrible. I'm gonna hear from so many people in Ohio, but no, Columbus is its own thing. Like it's weirdly fashion centric, like with L Brands and a lot of the stuff that goes on there, the museums, the concerts, it's a foodie scene, major university town, obviously, a couple of universities, all of that. And it's just accessible and efficient. Like there is no rush hour. I can be at the airport in 25 minutes from anywhere. So it's got all those, you can be out of town on hiking trails and in Amish country. Everything's 20, 30 minutes. It's amazing.
And I have to ask this. This is a question that I'm really interested in, for personal reasons. Why the law degree? Right, it looks like in 2008 you finished the law degree, and then a couple of years later, of course, is when you started working for Ohio State. Settled in the Columbus area. But before that, why go to law school? It seems like it's a bit of a different direction than where you're in now.
So law degree, because I was a modern poetry English major. So you're going to have to go to graduate school so you can afford to eat. But various reasons for going to law school immediately I wasn't even to my 2L year yet when I decided I didn't want to practice. And so at that point, started looking at other options. I mean, you've already paid the money, you've put the time in. Law school's like boot camp. You don't want to be halfway through and leave. So it's like, what can I do then with a law degree? And there's tons of stuff you can do with a law degree. just practicing. I have so many friends who don't practice that use their law degree every day. So I immediately kind of went into elder law. My 2L year, that's what I started focusing on. And that's everything from wills, trust, estate planning, to really prepping federal policy for baby boomers, understanding CMS regulations. So it kind of became something that I have used quite a bit throughout my healthcare career.
And so where were you at? Because on the LinkedIn resume, it only shows, Compass One in Ohio State. So where were you before, between those 8 years or so between law school and then when you were in Columbus?
Well, I don't think we have enough time on the podcast to go into that. I lived on a beach in Rio de Janeiro for a little bit.
Wow.
Was in DC. That was kind of my. So anybody who knows me, and obviously we're trying to get from how did you go from law school to this like support service patient experience. So customer service is always something I've understood. The client facing aspect of my job is, there was even a time where I went to my boss and I'm like, how do I get paid to do this? And he's like, people skills is a skill set. Like you probably don't get paid enough, to be honest. And so I've always had that. I was playing music. I was, again, traveling internationally and just kind of had this thing after law school where I was able to work remote. I was working with a company out of Oklahoma, a friend of mine doing a little policy work, which allowed me to kind of chase those, crazy dreams. Did all of that. I ended up coming back to the United States. When I came back, the VP of one of our company VPs, the VP of Patient Experience, Dusty Derringer, reached out because he had found out I was back in the United States. Really kind of calls me out on, he's like, you got to quit being a D, man. He's like, you're too talented. You can't just live on the beach in Rio serving drinks and surfing, and I was like, well, first off, say that again slowly because it sounds pretty awesome. He's like, yeah, I know, but that's not sustainable. And he was absolutely right. So I have a law degree. I've done all of this traveling. The most interesting man in the world is not just the beard, the stories for days. But he did something to me that was one of the best things anybody has ever done to me in my professional career. He's like, I want you. I see where you're going to be. You've got the credentials. You've got the skill set. But at this company, we start at the bottom. You're going to start as an operations manager. You're going to be helping train people how to clean toilets. You're going to be. So during the day, I'm in like a cheap Cole suit, like pulling Press Ganey scores, understanding HCAPs. During the afternoon and night, I'm training housekeepers on how to do discharges. Weirdly, did not resent it, fell in love with it. I just fell in love with support services. And I love all of our support services. The food's amazing. The chefs I work with are unreal. But my heart is kind of that housekeeping piece. And anybody who understands correlations to HCAP scores, housekeeping has a really high correlation to your overall score. They're in the room so often, and it's somebody you can trust. Our people who serve food, our people who clean your room, a patient has an immediate connection with that vocation, where it's like, we love our nurses. I've never drawn blood. Our doctors are amazing. As my boss says, I didn't go to doctoring school. It's like, I trust you, cut me open, do what you need to do. I do know how to clean a room though. I do know the kind of food I like. Patients can immediately connect with this, and there's this beautiful opportunity to make connection. And I just fell in love with it. I haven't left since.
That's a very important point. Very interesting. And then, of course, reaffirms how important or how nice Columbus is. That if you've been all over the world living on beaches and whatnot, and you settle in Columbus.
Yeah, I got older too. That's part of it. Like, yeah, efficiency and comfort have become really important to me. It used to be like grab a backpack, live in a hostel, and I tell these stories and people are like, wow, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, it actually sounds terrible. Like, that was great at 25 years old. Like, you could not pay me to do that again.
My wife still would like to, get a van and live in a van for a while. I'm just not so sure about it.
Just the bathroom, right? Just the bathroom situation alone. Like, yeah, no. Mm-mm.
I'm spoiled.
You're young. Maybe you could do it. You're young.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then so it is interesting because, I've spoken with some of the executives at institutions, and I've noticed that the institutions who seem to score really well, on especially those who are a totally integrated care network, their insurance plan scores well. In addition, are those who actually really care about the EVS staff, who really are down with the front lines, shaking hands.
Yeah.
I talked to Kevin Mahoney of Penn, and he said, that unless these people really take their job seriously. The people who are mopping the floors, the people who are cleaning up in the ER, nobody else can do their job. But
No.
that doesn't seem to be an attitude that everyone shares.
Oh, yeah.
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 And
No.
so coming from a lot, well, I was going to say, coming from a law degree background, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people, there's certain biases of lawyers out there in terms of,
They're
a
true,
certain
by the way.
level of wealth, and
Mostly true.
that's terrible. I mean, not to go into the weeds on that, but why do you think that you are somebody who actually is able to do that work and who cares about that kind of work, coming from your educational background compared to some of your peers who might not really like that? This episode of The Strategy of Health was sponsored by Modality Global Advisors. Modality Global Advisors optimizes hospital revenue, enhances patient experience, and delivers proven results. Visit modalityglobaladvisors.com to learn more.
No, I've got the answer for that. But before we go to that, don't forget that question. You talked about, talking to Kevin, talking to people who understand how you treat frontline staff. So I've often told my team or clients that I have one magical skill. Let me walk up on one of your units, just a gen surge unit. I can tell you if scores are tanking or if I can't tell you what your scores are, but I can at least tell you if they're in a place, where you're a decent, percentile rank that we can work with. And the way I do it is how they're treating support staff. If you walk up on the floor, housekeepers are they're in the break room able to eat their food. You see the patient transporter has her dog's picture is on the board with all the other pets from that unit. We at least have something to work with here. We have engagement, we have kindness, we have empathy. So often I'll walk up on the floor, there's signs on the doors, no housekeepers allowed. I'm introducing our managers to a nurse manager because they've never talked. And I immediately, no surprise, scores are terrible.
It's like that, with I don't know if you saw this photo on Twitter a year or two ago, but it's the stools that say, physicians only, no PA or NP allowed.
I haven't seen that, but I've lived it.
Like it creates a hostile environment.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It makes improvement nearly impossible.
Yeah. But yeah, so that covers that. But if you want to go back to your other question.
Yeah, please, on how, you're the right person for this. What qualities do you have that you think make you successful?
Just the growing up. And so it's like I can come out of the gate and be like, yeah, I got all this travel and all the degrees or whatever. I'm actually at LSU right now getting my MHA. So there's this there's this idea that I have all this stuff. I am from Southeast Kansas, Northeast Oklahoma, grew up on a horse, grew up on a farm, not a big farm. Nobody was rich. My dad's a mechanic. You learn to hustle. That's my background. And just having him instill that in me, I got a little bougie in me. It's always been in there. There's always been a little ego, but just having him, slap me down and put me back in my place my entire life, just being like, hey, you're not better than anybody else. In fact, service starts at the ground up, and so he's always had that. He was that guy that we found out after he died, we didn't know how many people owed us money because he was just giving away free stuff, wasn't charging people. He would, if you were elderly, if you were poor, people would come to him. And so this was just the example that I lived with.
But you're not working in environments where that's always the case. And so, I mean, how do you actually change some of these environments, right? Like you said, the sign on the door, the crazy example of the chair that I brought up. I mean, that seems really challenging because you can't just go in there guns blazing and say, you all
Absolutely not
being rude and need to change, right? You have to do things in a certain way.
So that's a hard question. Here we go. I've been flowing, giving you all these answers. Now you stump me. I mean, this is what we do.
I mean, these are questions that I have myself. Right?
Yeah, this is a real question. And it's not just for food service or PT. It's that everybody has to deal with this question. So we go in, we have our programs. Our programs are proven and tested. They're the best in the business. We stack our scores up against anybody. We always have. We always come out on top. That's why people hire us. Highest retention rate, largest portfolio. That being said, we've got this very strategic approach to patient experience of the 4 pillars, and I won't go into the whole program. One pillar is about tailoring it to fit. It's about customizing it. How do you take these pieces, these foundational pieces that are standardized, and make them customized? The reason you have to do that, and you know this, and everybody listening to the podcast knows this, every single hospital has its own culture. It can be the same system, hospitals across the street, they're going to have their own culture. And so this isn't necessarily a healthcare approach. This is anybody going into any system, any job, any workplace, you can't go in like a bull in a china shop. You've got to go in and build trust. Now, the good thing about what we do, it's 2024 in hospitals. You can build trust pretty fast. It's going to hit the fan quick. Like, you want to build trust, go work in an ED on a Friday night. Like, get to know the nurses, get to know the nurse managers, get to know our clients, like show them what we can do. Usually we can come together. They're appreciative of our work. They're very appreciative of us integrating into the culture. We don't want our names on the name badge. We don't want it to say like vendor on the email. Like, we want to be, which would surprise you. A lot of places are like, you will say vendor and you will have your company name. Again, big surprise, scores aren't great. But we want to be completely integrated. They really respect that. Then that allows us to flourish and little by little show them what we can accomplish. The same way that I said, I didn't go to doctoring school or I'm not a nurse. A lot of these people are in these C-suite levels or client levels. They have no idea how to drive HCAHPS when it comes to the environment of care domain. No clue. They're looking to us as the experts, and now we can prove it to them. And then sometimes we also have to have that hard conversation where we go to them, and I've had this, and say, hey, man, you're paying us a lot of money to run this program. You bought this program. You're allowing us to run about 35% of this program, because we're not engaging properly. You're not allowing us access. Like, help me help you. You're paying the money. I want to give you the full benefit, but here are the reasons this isn't working. So there's no magic bullet. It's about building trust. It's about relationships. That's why I'm in the position I'm in, is, to build relationships.
So I witnessed this recently, and this is something that's really been bothering me, is how to fix this situation. It actually is related to CAP scores. Of course, it's MCAPs with insurance, but similar overall idea. We have some frontline staff. We're not aware of what the CAPS is, which is normal. Probably 99% of people don't. And so we're trying to educate some of these, or I witnessed this, trying to educate some people on this. Sometimes it seems to be presented to people like, this isn't going to affect your compensation positively or negatively. It's not going to help your job be easier or anything. It's actually just, here's more work for you. Please do these extra things to make sure our scores are better, right? But sometimes the middle management doesn't feel like there is an option to do any of these things. We can't hand out bonuses, right? Et cetera, et cetera. How have you been able to impact frontline staff positively to get them to actually care about the scores? I'm not saying they don't care about their patients, so they do.
Yeah.
But there's that almost like a bureaucracy situation, like, oh, now I have to do this extra paperwork, or now I have to ask these extra questions, et cetera. I mean, what have you done to actually motivate people to actually do something different?
So that's twofold. So let's start with we'll end kind of with the blocking and tackling part of it, with the data aspect of it. So don't let me forget that. But as far as the frontline aspect of it is, so as you said, they're usually going to care about their patients. I mean, you have to be pretty cold. Again, and we keep going back to housekeeping. It's a good touching point to go into a room and see somebody, that's hooked up to pick your machine, or you see a family in tears. Or I work a lot in pediatric hospitals. How do you walk into that room and not have that emotional reaction? And so we start from there. I am of the school of patient experience that, and I'm taking a chance by saying this, even though I'm seeing the industry shift this way hard in the last couple of years, this idea that it's all about patient first is not true. It's got to be about employee first. You've got to empower your staff. So we work very hard to engage and empower our staff. We've just started separate from our patient experience division. Monisha Buckner, who used to work for me, she was a regional for me. She got promoted. Now she's my peer. We created an entire division just for our staff engagement. And it's amazing. And that's why we're doing it. They want to do the job. How could you not want to treat these people and their families, to elevate that experience? They're scared. Many of them are alone. They're obviously in pain. They're confused. If I tell you, well, you got to say the script, and then you got to check these boxes. And then when you're done cleaning the room, I'm going to need you to, I'm just giving you extra work. But if I can empower you to change somebody's life, that's what it's about. And then they'll run with it. I was thinking of stories where I've empowered people from when you said that. And if one of them that came to mind, now we're kind of in this Columbus, Ohio thing. So we had a lady, and again, can't name any names, and I've already named the facility that it was located at, but I was actually directing this person. So we're really kind of like driving engagement, looking at priority units, who's getting the most surveys. And this lady cleans like you could eat off the floor. One of our best housekeepers ever. Scores were terrible. Scores were terrible because there's no engagement. So this particular lady, developmentally disabled, very kind of, she was afraid to engage, afraid to speak to the patient. So we work on her with scripting, like that boring nuts and bolts piece. That doesn't work. If it would have, that already would have worked. If she could do that, she would have done it. Okay, well, we got a great idea. We're going to create these like engagement cards, like says who she is and what her job is, and she's going to sign them. She was embarrassed to hand them over because she was embarrassed of her signature. But this lady wanted to do the right thing so bad. And I have multiple people that can speak to the rest of the story. They've witnessed the whole thing. She actually came to me and said, I'm not good at all the stuff you're trying to get me to do. But during my breaks, I don't take my breaks with everybody else. I go to my janitor's closet and I color pictures. Would it be okay if I handed some of my pictures to the patients? And I was like, I will buy you coloring books and crayon. What are you talking about? Are you kidding me? That's amazing. She starts doing this. Scores are going up. Mm-hmm. We see pictures hanging in all of the patients' rooms. We start seeing pictures hanging in other units, in nurses' stations. She's becoming like this amazing mascot for the entire hospital. Everybody's loving it. And again, swear to you, I can back this up. People were in the room when this happened. A call gets transferred to me. We're like 4 or 5 months into this. And a lady wants to speak to the director of housekeeping. Just wanted me to know that they had been in the heart hospital. Almost said her name. Can't say her name. I was like, so-and-so, had been their housekeeper, and she's on a cardiac unit. And anybody listening knows you have a lot of return customers on a cardiac unit. So 4 or 5 times they had been through the hospital, and every time this lady had been their housekeeper, she was like, she was amazing. The staff was amazing. The hospital was amazing, but it was just too much, and it got him in the end, and my husband passed away. And I just wanted you to know that he was buried with 3 of her pictures.
Wow.
And it's like, man, if you empower people, like, forget it. Stop making them check boxes. Let's empower you. You're special. Let me help you be special in front of the patient.
Sometimes it feels really tempting, though. I mean, that story, of course, is impressive, and I wouldn't feel that way after hearing the story. But even myself, to just talk to my intern or one of my direct reports, my manager of operations, say, please draft up a checklist to fix this problem. Right? It's really easy to do that.
Yeah, it is.
How have you built? I mean, is there any tips you have for me?
Well, to the analytics part, instead of draft it up, tell people the why. You know what? Sometimes you do have to check boxes. We're in corporate America. This is the one thing, I also have to have this conversation because my team is wonderful. And it's not my team. Like, we have 2 national directors, we have a VP, we have all of these regionals across the country. They are so empathetic, way more than me. I can be a jerk. These people, they love humans. And so often I will have to have this conversation where they're like, well, but Grant, we're in the people business and human experience. And I'm like, you also have to get the contract signed or nobody has a job.
Right.
Like, there is business involved. So you do have to check those boxes. You do have to have the intern draw this up. The only way I found to be helpful with that is I need to tell you the why. So in that case, we're going to walk through what a contract looks like. We're going to walk through why there are these different elements of a contract. If I'm going to make you draft this up or check these boxes, I don't want you checking it blindly because you're going to check out. I want you checking them because you understand there's a greater purpose. So when I said, remind me of the analytics part, you're like, frontline staff isn't going to understand caps, and it's true. We're very big on making sure our frontline staff understands what caps are and they understand, so when I first learned this, I learned this the hard way because I'm younger, I'm cynical, I'm judgy, and we had an RDO that worked with this, and he's become a good friend and a mentor of mine. We had 250 FTEs. Mm-hmm. And he's like, we're going to bring all of them through. And we have a partnership with Prescaney. All of these frontline staff, they're going to sit down with you and your team over the course of a month. We're going to walk them through their unit. We're going to show them what their scores. They hear these scores. We tell them their scores all the time. Where do these scores come from? Mm-hmm. Like, what are our data people looking at every day? So we start, and I was like, dude, do you know how busy I am? I don't want to, this is ridiculous. They're not going to care. We're pulling them off the floor. Like, this is a complete waste of time. Guess what happens? We sit down and they're like, wait, you can put demographic? Mm. Oh, that's cool. Well, you can pick dates. I wasn't here that day. Let's see what my relief did that day. They were crazy about it. It was like they were playing a video game.
Yep.
You start giving people the why, they absolutely loved it. We had to force them out of the office. People were lined up. They wanted to come back and have us show it to them again. They're like, "Can we do this next month? I want to see where it's at this month." Like, give people the why. Let them in the room. Give them a seat at the table.
And I don't want to be crass, but I'm urged to say,
Yeah.
but that's what we are paid to do as leaders. That's what leaders are paid to do, is to consume their time by leading, right?
Yeah, go around and look at how many jobs are being eliminated right now at that that higher level, and they're not being eliminated. The job's still there. We're just combining it. You're getting a new title. You used to be over EVS and food. Now you're over EVS, food, radiology, and valet and patient experience. Anybody that comes on this podcast is going to tell you that's happening. So you can read your cheesy, we'll get on LinkedIn and see these, memes, and this is what a leader is, and this is how they're all true. Now you show up at work though, and you've been working at home for 3 hours to get caught up, and now you get here and you've got 12 hours to fit into eight hours. And it's just like, well, I got to have these emails sent, and I got to have this contract written, and I have to go meet with this client. Where can I shave off 30 minutes? Where can I shave off an hour? And so time is the greatest resource. And when we're trying to engage our staff, and again, this is not just hospitals, like pick your industry. The idea of that letting us have time to do that, I think should be critical. I try to give my people time to do that. My boss is really good at allowing us to have the freedom to do that. Not everybody is. I think it's simply a time issue.
Is there really ROI on that? And I think that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the issues that comes to mind, my wife works in management and retail, and we're talking about collecting phone numbers for people at the register when they go to checkout, right? And getting them to sign up for their
Yeah.
This connects to a broader organizational data strategy that makes a lot of rational sense at the broad level. At the individual level, as a cashier, seems nonsensical, right? Because it's like, I'm dealing with all these other things. But from an organizational standpoint, like I said, it makes sense. Is the ROI, in your experience, of educating that cashier in that front line, educating the EVS staff, the nursing staff on these caps, on these goals, has it, been positive? Has the ROI really come through?
Absolutely. And we are finding ways to quantify it. We work with our data analytics team to try to get there. Chris Duke and his team with Compass One Healthcare. Won't go into how we're doing that right now. We have these calls set up where we're looking at various, temp checks, and these very, quantifying it is so hard though, because, and this is the big rub when it comes to patient experience, you're talking soft skills. You're talking these, the idea of, okay, when can I be creative? When do I have eureka moments? I'm going off in a different direction. It's never when you're scrolling Instagram. It's never when you're watching TV. It's when you allow yourself to be bored. That's how the brain works. But now quantify that ROI. Like quantify saying, I need 45 minutes of free time to go on a walk because it will then result in this. It might not result in that for 2 weeks, man, but it's going, so how do you quantify it? Now go to patient experience, that time with the staff, this time to engage, to be creative. That ROI is so hard because it's soft skill. Then throw on top of that we have, a 45 to 90 day lag time in scores. So we don't know if what we're doing is actually accomplishing anything. It's that lack of feedback loop with what we do is, to me, probably the most difficult thing.
I hope you guys publish a blog or an article so that I can share those with some of my colleagues, because that is kind of the ROI and the data I think that a lot of people are really waiting for to see. And personally, I am on the side of it is beneficial. It is very important that everybody is educated and takes full ownership. But like you said, it's tough to convince, especially financial leadership, that really worth the man hours.
Yeah, it's the big another patient experience tip. Get people talking about themselves and they love it. I'm just as susceptible as anybody.
That's really tough. But yeah, no. So I know we're at the time limit there. Really appreciate you and your incredible discussion so far. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel already more motivated after talking with you. I hope we can have you back on again in the future as well.
Yeah, that went quick. You got me rambling. You got me talking.
Oh yeah, no, it's excellent, and being able to network with you as well, I really do appreciate it. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope we can have you on again.
Absolutely. Thank you.